How could a country sitting on the largest proven oil reserves on the entire planet suffer a complete and catastrophic economic collapse? It's a contradiction that just seems to defy all logic. Today, we're going to decode that exact puzzle. Okay, let's just let that sink in for a second. We're not just talking about a lot of oil. We're talking about more crude oil reserves than Saudi Arabia, Canada, or Iran. The sheer scale of this natural wealth is, well, it's just staggering, which makes what happened next all the more shocking. And this, right here, is the central question. If you have the world's most valuable resource in the ground, what could possibly go so wrong? The answer, as you'll see, is incredibly complex, and it reveals a really powerful lesson about risk and resilience. So to get to the bottom of this, we first need to understand the anatomy of the collapse itself. You see, this wasn't a single event, but more like a slow-motion disaster that unfolded over decades. This timeline really tells the story of a slow-motion train wreck. Back in the 70s, it was a massive party funded by an incredible oil boom. But then, by the 90s, the first tremors started. Price volatility began to shake the foundations. Then the 2010s hit, where the toxic mix of policy choices and neglected infrastructure that caused production to just plummet, setting the stage for the full-blown crisis we're seeing today. So the crucial point here is that this was a perfect storm. At the very top of the list is a fatal over-reliance on oil, basically putting all of your eggs in one basket. This was then compounded by years and years of unsustainable political and economic choices. All this just made the country incredibly vulnerable when global oil prices inevitably dropped. And on top of all that, the very infrastructure needed to get the oil out of the ground was literally crumbling. But what if you could have seen this coming? This is where our analysis takes a pivot, moving from the what happened to the how. How a new framework called ResilienceXAI could completely change the game. This question is right at the heart of the whole concept. Just imagine a tool that doesn't just react to disasters after they happen, but could actually identify the hidden cracks in a system long before they cause a total failure. That is the entire goal here. First, let's break down the resilience part. It's not simply about being rich or strong. It's about being flexible. You know, the ability for an economy to see a shock coming, absorb the impact, and then bounce back effectively without totally collapsing. Now here's the really fascinating part. XAI, which stands for Explainable AI. This isn't some mysterious black box that spits out answers you just have to trust. An explainable AI actually shows its work. It lays out the reasons and the data behind its conclusions so that we humans can understand it, question it, and ultimately trust its analysis. And this illustrates the idea perfectly. I mean, you would never trust a bridge that hadn't been stress tested for high winds or heavy traffic, right? Well, think of ResilienceXAI as doing the exact same thing, but for a country's entire economy. It's looking for those hidden fractures and weak points before the weight of a crisis causes the whole thing to come crashing down. So what happens when we apply this economic stress test to the Venezuelan crisis? Let's take a look at what the AI's analysis would likely reveal. The real power of a tool like this is how it sees all the interconnections. It sifts through massive, seemingly unrelated piles of data to find the hidden signals. For instance, it could analyze satellite imagery showing rust on oil pipelines, correlate that with social media chatter about parts shortages, and then cross-reference both against global trade data showing a decline in machinery imports. It doesn't just see individual risks. It sees the entire chain reaction. It's mapping out the dominoes before they even start to fall. And here's a perfect visual of a vulnerability the AI would flag instantly. On an economic diversity index, Venezuela scores a dangerously low 12. Now compare that to another major oil producer, Norway, which has worked hard to diversify its economy and scores a 78. That huge gap, that's a massive red flag for systemic risk. And this is what the AI's output might look like. A clear, actionable dashboard. It assigns these resilience scores to key factors. You can immediately see the flashing red lights, critical status for political stability and that export diversity we just talked about, high risk for debt levels, and poor for infrastructure health. It's a crystal clear diagnosis of a system that is right on the brink. Okay, so let's zoom out. What are the big lessons we can take away from all this? And maybe more importantly, why do they matter far, far beyond Venezuela? There are 4 huge takeaways here. First, being over-dependent on one single thing, no matter how valuable it is, creates deep, profound fragility. Second, true resilience, it comes from diversity and being able to adapt, not just from having raw wealth. Third, and this is the really forward-looking part, Powerful new tools like XAI can help us make these invisible risks visible. And finally, understanding the systemic fragility is absolutely crucial for any complex system. And this is why this should matter to all of us. The exact same principles of systemic risk apply to the global supply chains that deliver our goods, they apply to our financial markets, and they apply to our planet's climate systems. They are all complex, they are all interconnected, and they are all potentially very fragile. So I'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. Applying this new lens of resilience, which of the critical systems that we all depend on every single day, from our power grids to our food supply, are actually far more fragile than we realize?